Good morning, afternoon or evening, wherever you are. I'm Paul Clark and welcome to my studio. Now, what have I got for you lovely lot today? Well, a few weeks back I did my first ever portrait. Link up here if you haven't seen it. And I've had loads of you requests for another one. So we're going to have a go at this portrait of this lovely lady. But we're going to be using the humble pencil as the starring role for this tutorial. So come and join me and we'll paint step by step together. So just before we start, from our Facebook group, Margot recently did a portrait challenge. So we've included at the end, picked purely at random, some beautiful paintings and examples. So stick around to have a look at those, including some paintings of this very lady. Okay, so for today's materials, my paper is some Saunders Waterford. It's a rough texture, 100% cotton, £140, and it's on a block, so it won't need stretching, but any decent watercolour paper will do. And my colours are 3 primaries: cobalt blue, cadmium yellow, alizarin crimson, then some yellow ochre, burnt umber, Payne's grey, and some dark steam purple. 4 brushes from my range today, 3/4 inch flat, number 12, number 6 round, and of course my trusty number 3 rigger, and also some white acrylic ink. Okay, so here's the lovely reference photo which I got from Pixabay. Now she looks like an Indian lady, and I'm guessing she's in a paddy field. Now if anyone knows what that tool thing is she's holding, please let me know. It looks like some sort of reins or harness, but I'm intrigued. Anyway, what I loved about the picture is her gorgeous smile and that fabulous green and purple colour together. Now one thing I knew could be a big problem are those hands. Now they are notoriously difficult to draw and understand. Now I tried a couple of sketches first to make sure that I'm getting it right. Now as I said, hands are always known to be difficult, and it reminded me of a brilliant cartoon from Monty Python, which I managed to find to show you. Now you can just imagine some great Renaissance artist producing this until he gets to those hands. Damn it, damn it, damn it. Anyway, to start with, I sketched out on some plain drawing paper, making loads of adjustments until I was reasonably happy I got her right. Then I used the old tried and tested way of scribbling on the back of the paper and then using a ballpoint pen to transfer it onto my watercolour paper. So now I have the basic outline. I'm using a fairly soft 2B pencil as I want the pencil work to play a major role in this painting, using it to create all the form and detail. And I love the textured effects you get from using rough paper. Now this drawing stage took me nearly an hour to produce, so I'm going to speed up the process. Now for the paint. Off we go! Starting with a background first and wetting with clean water using my 3/4 inch flat. Now I'm using my normal various mixes of cobalt blue and cadmium yellow for all my greens, but chucking in a little French ultramarine just for good measure. bit of splatting, of course. Now for her hair, clean water again, and then dropping in a mix of Payne's Grey and Cobalt Blue, still using my large flat brush. Now, for that lovely purple with a richer mix towards the bottom. Now for this harness thing. Anyone know what it is yet? Anyway, I'm using some burnt umber. And for the rope, just any green. Now for the skin tone, I'm using a very watery mix of yellow ochre and alizarin crimson, but adding in a second hit into some of the shadow areas. Now because the alizarin crimson is a cool red, when mixed with the yellow ochre, it will give the colour a slightly brownish tint, which is exactly what I'm after. Now, I've often been asked if the watercolour will smudge the pencil and lift off some of the graphite, especially when using softer leads like this 2B. Well, it does, but only very slightly, and certainly not enough to influence the colour. Now, I have a video on using pencil with watercolour. I'll link above if you haven't seen it. So now we need to let this totally dry, so it's a perfect time for a short break, and as it's 10:30 in the morning, just a cup of Darjeeling tea. Cheers. Now for some fairly subtle shadows, and I'm using the same flesh mix as before, but just a slightly thicker consistency. But I've also added in a tiny touch of Cobalt Blue. And I'm also softening with clean water some of these washes to get a good smooth transition. Now this is definitely where your painting can go through the ugly stage, as it looks a bit like the poor lady has a 5 o'clock shadow at the moment. Here I'm just darkening the mix again by adding a little touch more Cobalt Blue. very watery mix of alizarin crimson here for her lips. Now you don't want to get them too red and bright. It's not an ad for Giorgio Armani. Now I have some of the values in for the face. I can clearly see I want more contrast with the background, so I'm going to re-wet and get some much darker values in. And bring out a much stronger purple here. Okay, so now it's time for the details. So I'm now using my number 6 brush, and I'll list all the colours below that I'm using. And I'm just slowly bringing out the details, but still trying to keep these washes fairly transparent. Now you can see that now it is dried, my skin tone is nowhere near being pink enough, especially when compared to the original. So I'm mixing up a very watery mix of my skin tone, but this time adding in more of the alizarin crimson. And this is just one of the things I love about the transparency of watercolour, is that you can paint another layer or glaze directly over top. There we go, that's given her a little more colour in her face. Okay, now for some final touches. I'm using some white acrylic ink, but you could use some gouache or even acrylic paint. And I'm using my trusty number 3 rigger for this. It holds lots of paint, so perfect for the job. Just love that flyaway look of her hair. Little bit of grey up here. Then I'm coming back in with my 2B pencil to pull out a few darker areas and details. Now, I don't think I got exactly her expression right, but it certainly was good fun. Well, I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did, and you'll give it a go. Even if you treat it like a conventional watercolour, it's still going to work. But as always, have fun with it. So, please don't forget to like, subscribe if you haven't already, it is free. Leave a comment, I do read every single one. And of course, I'll look forward to seeing you all again next week for another Watercolour Wednesday. Cheers now.